what I want to deal with on tonight. So let's jump in it. Let's jump in it. We're going to talk about in the next few weeks. Talking about behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, God is at work. That's what we're going to be dealing with over the next couple of weeks. Behind the scenes, behind the curtains, God is at work. And I believe if I can put my trust in a script writer, a producer, an orchestrator, a conductor, a cameraman, a light, if I can put my trust in them to get things ready, surely I can be patient enough when I really understand that God is at work behind the scenes. I believe God is working on the person's heart that's going to be blessing me next. I believe God is telling this person he's getting ready to change and I need you to be a blessing for him. I believe God is getting ready to make sure my enemies don't come and trip me up. I believe he's already preparing things behind the scenes. So that's going to be our premise for this whole lesson. So I want to look at three passages. Tonight's going to be the introduction. We're just going to get into the introduction tonight. Not going to really go too deep into it. We'll go deeper into it next week. But I want you to look at these passages. And we're going to stop and pause and talk about it for a few seconds on each one of them. All three of them you're familiar with. One maybe not as much, but two of them I know you are very familiar with. Listen to what this first one says. Job chapter 1, verses 6 through 12. It says, one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. All right, they came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, where have you come from? Satan answered the Lord, from roaming through the earth and going back and forth in it. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? Let that sink in for a minute. He didn't say nothing about trying to find somebody to destroy. He just said, hey, I'm just roaming through the earth, going back and forth in it. And the Lord just volunteered. Hey, have you considered that pastor at Mount Olive? Hey, have you considered Miss Bobby? Hey, have you considered Miss Va? Have you considered Deacon Shaw? Have you considered Minister Carey? Just imagine him just putting your name in there for no reason. Just putting your name. Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless. He is upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. And listen to his response. Does Job fear God for nothing? Satan replied, have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands so that his flocks and his herd are spread throughout the land. But stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely cuss you to your face. The Lord said to Satan, very well then, everything he has is in your hands, but on the man himself do not lay a finger. Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. So when you just read verses 6 through 12, what immediately jumps out at you from Job chapter 1, verses 6 through 12, that catches your attention? You may have heard in a sermon or something about this passage that really jumps out at you. Let's talk about it for a few minutes. When you read or you hear Job chapter 1, verses 6 through 12, what are some things that really jump out at you? Put it in the chat or unmute yourself. Put it in the chat. So let's go to this next one. This is good. Luke chapter 22. Look at Luke chapter 22. Listen to what it says. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you as wheat, but I've prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. All right. When you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. But he replied, Lord, I'm ready to go with you to prison and to death. Jesus answered, I tell you, Peter, before the rooster crows today, you will deny 3 times that you know me. All right, let's talk about that one. What jumped out at you on this one? And think about this. If you're Satan, and I hit Job with everything I had. I hit Job with everything I had. Family, I had children, it's fine. I hit him with everything I had, and he was still standing. And that was because God picked his good one. So this time, I'm not going to let you pick. I want to get that one I heard cussing that night. I want to get that one that got the switchblade. I want to get that one that think he can walk on water. That's the one I want to get. So this time I'm not going to let you choose. I'm going to get the one that I know struggles. Now watch this. This is the beauty of God. Even though I know he struggles, my prayers are strong enough to keep him standing after he falls. And this is what I love about today. Job went through it, didn't fall. Job went through it, didn't fall. Peter went through it, failed, but then got back up. So even though you fail does not mean God didn't prepare you for it. You know, he prepared you to get back up. He prepared another one to keep standing through it. So a lot of times we look at other people like, well, I saw him go through it. He didn't fail, so I must be a failure. No. God knew you needed to fall because the fall was preparing you for something down the road. Lord have mercy. So when you look at Luke 22 and you look at Job chapter 1, there are conversations going on. Simon was not there. Simon was not there when they had the conversation. Job was not there when they had the conversation. So there's something going on behind the scenes that you don't even know about. And so now when trouble comes, you say, okay, I realize God must have suggested me, or the enemy must thought I was weak. God must have suggested me, or the enemy must think I'm weak. And so that ought to give you motivation to say, if God trusts me with this trouble, he knows I can handle it. All right. He knows I can handle it. So let's look at this next one. Daniel chapter 10. Verses 11 through 14. Watch this one. He said, Daniel, you are highly esteemed. Consider carefully the words I'm about to speak to you and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. Then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard. All right. From the first day you set your mind to gain understanding, to humble yourself before God, your words were heard. And I have come in response to them. But, verse 13, but the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me for 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time to come. All right. So what jumps out at you when you hear Daniel chapter 10? What jumps out at you when you hear Daniel chapter 10, verses 11 through 14? Unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Already addressed it. Okay, I like that. All right. So y'all are familiar with it. So let's jump into it. One of the greatest frustrations in the Christian life is living in the gap between what God has promised and what we presently see. All right. God has promised some things. He's going to meet my needs. God has promised that he's going to be a very present help in trouble. God has promised that he's going to work all things together. God has promised that he's going to do all this stuff. So that tension comes and that frustration comes when there's a gap. When there's a gap between what God promised and what we presently see. God, I know you said you can do exceedingly abundantly above all I can ask or think, but that ain't what I'm seeing right now. So I'm in that gap between what God promised and what I presently see. All right. So here's what happens. Here's what happens to me on a personal level. I pray, but nothing changes. I trust, but circumstances seem unchanged. And sometimes, maybe just me, sometimes when you pray, you trust, and it seems like they get worse. All right. Seems like it's getting worse. I'm praying and nothing's changing. I'm trusting God. I'm fasting and my circumstances are not changing. And what we often fail to realize is that while we're focused on what is happening around us, God is working on things we cannot see. And that's going to be the whole premise of this series, that I'm focused on these bills. I'm focused on this trouble. I'm focused on this community. I'm focused on these laws. I'm focused on this oppression. I'm focused on all this other stuff. And God is working on things we cannot see. All right. And so here's what it is. Just because God is silent in this season does not mean he is absent. And how many times have you said, God, where are you? God, where are you? I don't feel your presence. He said, I'm a very present help in a time of trouble. And just because God is silent doesn't mean he is absent. Just because nothing is changing in front of you does not mean God is not working for you. He's the one behind the scenes, orchestrating, getting everything set up. He's getting everything ready for your next scene. All right. So just because you don't see it, just because nothing is happening in front of you, tonight we're going to change our mindset to understand that just because I don't see him working, I got to know that he's working for me. All right. So watch this. God often does his greatest work behind the scenes. All right. Before he does his greatest work in public. A lot of times I used to hear this all the time. Man, you came out of nowhere. Man, we didn't know who you was, and all of a sudden you showed up at Mount. You just came out of nowhere. No, God had me working. He was working on me behind the scenes. He was doing some things on me behind the scenes before he did his greatest work in public. And so you got to understand, God, I'm ready to be on the stage. God, I'm ready to do this. God, I'm ready for overflow. God, I'm ready for promotion. God said, no. I'm doing some work in your overflow, but I'm working on you behind the scenes. I'm working on you in lack before I propel you to prosperity. All right. So God is doing his greatest work behind the scene. He's got that person on the next floor that's already hating on you and you hadn't even gotten the job yet. So he's working on him before he opens the door for you to walk in. All right. So one of the greatest challenges of the Christian life is learning how to trust God when nothing appears to be happening. I might be the only one, but I believe I got one or two witnesses. That's one of the greatest challenges of your Christian walk is learning how to trust God when nothing appears to be happening. You're praying and God is not doing anything. You're fasting, you trusting, and you don't see God doing anything. All right. So now is the time where you got to learn how to trust God when nothing appears to be happening. So here's the real test. The real test comes when heaven is silent and circumstances remain unchanged. Because many of us, that's where frustration enters the picture. That's where frustration enters the picture. I heard what Pastor said. I've been doing this stuff. I've been doing this. I've been tithing. I started coming to Sunday school. I started doing it, and nothing's happening. And so that's where frustration begins to enter the picture. But just like someone said, when you go to the show, you don't go and peek behind the curtains because you don't see nothing moving. All right. You trust that the orchestrator of this production knows what he's doing. You trust that the orchestrator of this production is working some things out for the best show possible. And if you can trust that orchestrator, do you really trust the sovereign God of the universe? If so, why are you frustrated? Because you're looking at your watch and the flyer says it's going to start at 7. You're looking at your watch and the flyer said it's going to start at 7:30. So the reason why you may not be trusting God in your situation when you don't see nothing come, because you're working on your own timetable. You're working on your own timetable. So now you don't see nothing and you've been tithing for 2 months. You don't see nothing and you've been doing this. You've been working out. You've been doing this. And so now there's a frustration beginning to set in because your circumstances remain unchanged. And on your timetable, something should be happening by now. Something should be working by now. All right. And so now watch this. This is why I think Miss Jennifer said it earlier. This is why faith is necessary. All right. Because there's a wrestling match going on between your faith and your flesh. All right. So faith and frustration are often competing voices in the life of the believer. All right. So you're waiting on God to move. You're waiting on God to change your situation. You're waiting on your breakthrough. You're waiting on your overflow. You're waiting for God to do something. And now this morning you got faith. I'm going to wait on the Lord because the Bible says they that wait up on the Lord by 3:30, I done got frustrated. All right. Because there's some competing voices in the life of the believer. All right. And oftentimes we become frustrated because we judge God's activity by what we can see. God ain't doing nothing. God ain't doing nothing. I've been waiting and I don't see nothing. So we judge his activity by what we can see, not knowing that he's working on the next scene. All right. Not knowing that he's working on Pharaoh's heart. All right. So frustration occurs when what we see don't match what we expected God to do. And that's where a lot of times your frustration comes in, not with God. It's because of your expectation. You expected because you did this, this shouldn't have happened to you. We prayed for healing, but still feel pain. We prayed for provision, but the bills still keep coming. We prayed for change, but the situation looks exactly the same. And because we don't see movement, we assume God isn't moving. I believe this is coming down somebody's street tonight because you're at that level of frustration. I keep getting on Bible study. I keep getting on Sunday morning service. I keep hearing, I keep studying, I keep doing my devotional. But Pastor, I'm not seeing anything. What I'm praying about, I hadn't seen anything. And because we don't see movement, we assume God is not moving. All right. So watch this. Faith, however, we talked about frustration, but faith, however, believes God is working even when there's no visible evidence. Faith says, I don't see it, but I believe God is working. I don't understand it, but I believe God is working. I don't like it, but God is working. I can't explain it, but God is working. This is why God allows things to happen, because he's trying to show you if your faith is for real or if your faith is situational. And most of us, if we're honest tonight, we got situational faith. When things are going well, I will bless him at all times. When things are going well, oh my God, my Savior, the one who will never let me down. We got all of these things we say. So God says, okay, let me see if this is a Job situation or a Peter situation. So I'm going to allow some things to happen to see if he's going to get frustrated with me or he's going to walk by faith until I bless him. All right. So you got to understand that there's competing voices going on. And this is why Romans 8:28 becomes the believer's confidence. When you're in this situation where you're sitting between your right now and your not yet, Romans 8:28 becomes your confidence. Because watch this. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God and those who are called according to his purpose. The purpose of the orchestrator is to organize everything so that it can go smoothly. So I believe that God is back there working all things together. He's working that divorce. He's working that job layoff. He's working that financial situation. He's taking all this stuff together. So in your next scene, you ain't got to deal with this battle. All right. And so he's working all things together. Watch this. You can't feel that. You got to know that. All right. You got to know that God is working behind the scenes. I don't see it. I don't understand it. I can't explain it, but I do know this, that God is at work. All right. So frustration occurs when I focus. Here's that word again. When I focus on what God has not done. Here it is, yet. Frustration occurs when I focus on what God has not done yet. That's what frustration says. Faith says God is still working on what's coming next. And that's what Miss Natola says. She said he's preparing the next scene. He's preparing what's coming up next. He's preparing this next person for his line. So my faith says, God, I don't see it. I don't see what you're doing. I can't explain what you're doing, but I know you've already taken care of my now. You already working on my next. And that's why you got to have faith to keep trusting God now, and then enough faith to know that he's working on your next. All right. And so the challenge is, here it is. The curtain is pulled back in these passages. Here it is. So we can learn a life-changing truth. See, many times we trust this God who comes through every time you tell him what to do. Every time you claim it, every time you speak it, every time you expect God to come through. But God has a process because he's doing something in you, not for your right now, but for your after a while. And when you can understand that, then you don't get weary in well doing. All right. Then you don't give up before you get to the table that's prepared before your enemies. All right. So you got to understand three things real quick, three things that we're going to look at tonight real quick. Here's the first one. Behind the scenes, God is regulating. Here it is, Shannon. God is regulating what is allowed. All right, behind the scene. I can't see none of this, but behind the scenes, here's the first thing we can talk about God. God is regulating what is allowed. Listen to what he told Satan. But stretch out your hand and strike everything he has. Here it is. And he will surely cuss you to your face. The Lord said to Satan, very well then, everything he has is in your hands, comma, but on the man himself, don't lay a finger. Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Just look at that for a minute. He says, you stretch your hand out and you strike everything he has. And this is what's going to happen. He's going to curse you to your face. The Lord said, very well. I'm going to let you have it. I'm going to let you have all of his stuff, everything he has, the Lexus, the Beamer, the Benz, the Bentley, the house, all that stuff is in your hands, but don't touch him. See, you ought to shout sometime that even though the car broke down, the refrigerator broke down, the dishwasher broke down, the house, the roof is leaking, all that stuff happening, and God said, but your health is good. But I didn't allow you to touch your mind. I didn't allow him to touch your heart. I didn't allow him to touch your body. So you got to understand that behind the scenes, God is regulating what is allowed. All right. He's regulating what is allowed. So watch this. Satan wanted access. I want to get to him. I want to get to him because if I could get to him, he going to quit all this praising you. Because the only reason he praising you is because you hooked him up. So if I can get his stuff, if I can get access to his stuff, I believe I can stop him from shouting. I believe I can stop him from worshiping. I believe I can stop him from coming to church. All right. So watch this. Satan wanted access, but here's the shout. God established boundaries. Oh, man, if you can't find nothing else to shout about tonight, there it is right there. Satan wanted access. I see it. He's heard about this. He's heard about this. He's mad at this. He's mad. I see the weak spot. I want access. And God says, well, I'm going to let you have some, but you can't go past this boundary. You can't go past this boundary. All right. And so the shout is you're pouting because of what God let the enemy touch. You ought to be shouting because of what God didn't let him touch. He established boundaries. He let him say, hey, man, you can do this. Now, okay, I'm going to get this in your hand, but don't lay a finger on it. All right. So the attack, here's the shout. The attack has limitations because he knows what you can handle. All right. The enemy does not possess unrestricted authority over a child of God. He does not have unrestricted authority. Everything that's happening to you is regulated by God on what he will allow. All right. Satan could only do what God allowed. He said, I want to lay hands on him. I want to lay hands on him, but you got this fence around him. I want to lay hands on him, but I can't get to him. And so he had limited access to what God allowed. And that's why I know you went through something Monday, but he put that hedge of protection and wouldn't let you fall apart Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Yeah, I know you went through something Friday and they was talking about you at work and it got heavy, but then he gave you peace of mind on Saturday. He kept that hedge of protection so you wouldn't fall apart and you made it to church on Sunday. You ought to just shout tonight because of what God didn't allow to happen. All right. And so here's the thing. Even though he kept giving him limited access, he kept giving him limited boundaries to work with, God never surrendered control. He regulated the attack. Everything that's happening to you is regulated and allowed by God. So if God allowed it, you can handle it. If God allowed it, he's already prepared you for it. All right. So what reaches you must first pass through God's permission. Oh, Lord have mercy. If it reach your house, if it reach your door, if it reach your financial situation, then God let it pass through him and gave it permission because he knew he can trust you through it. So watch this, watch this, watch this. Notice what he said. Notice what he says. Notice what he says in verse 12. The Lord said to him, okay, very well. Everything he has is in your hands. Watch this. But on the man himself, don't lay a finger. And Satan went on about his business, and he destroyed his children, destroyed his house, destroyed everything he had. Now flip to the next chapter. Flip to the next chapter, Job chapter 2. Listen to what he says. Skin for skin. Skin for skin, Satan replied. A man will give all he has for his own life, but stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely cuss you to your face. I couldn't get him in chapter 1 because he ain't worried about no business. He ain't worried about all that kind of stuff. But if you touch his flesh and bones, I know he's going to curse you then. And the Lord said to Satan, watch this, very well then. He is in your hands. The first time, everything he has, but this time, he is in your hands. But watch this, some more boundaries, but you must spare his life. Watch this. You can touch him, but you can't kill him. You're going to have the surgery, but you're going to come through it alive. Oh, Lord, have mercy. You're going to go through the surgery. You're going to go through some painful seasons. I'm going to allow that to happen. But I'm going to spare your life. And this is what I love about God. Chapter 1, he put some boundaries because you wasn't ready yet. Chapter 2, he says, let me move the boundaries back, but he's still not going to do anything. All right? So watch this. As you mature, you thought the more you got closer to God, the more you matured, you wouldn't go through anything. No. As you mature, the boundaries increase. Why do you let the boundaries increase? I figured if I passed the test in chapter 1, I should be good for chapter 2. No. Why did you allow the boundaries to increase? Here's the next shout. Because now, because of what you went through in chapter 1 and came through it, you've developed power from your previous testimony. Oh, Lord, I'm about to shout all by myself tonight. Because of what I came through in chapter 1, whatever you take me through in chapter 2, you can't destroy me because I got evidence that he's going to keep me in chapter 1. And so that's the testimony of a true, mature believer. Yes, I lost some stuff. Yes, I lost this. Yes, I lost this, but I still got breath in my body. And as you mature, God will move the boundaries back. Number one. Okay, go ahead. You can mess with his stuff. He ain't worried about that. He'll catch a ride to church. Go ahead and do something to the car. Let the engine go out. Let it get a flat. Let all that stuff. He gonna find him. He'll call Elroy to come get him. That ain't gonna mess with him. And so many of you, because your car has become your identity, you done lost your mind over a radiator. You done lost your mind over some silly stuff. And God says, you just don't know the boundaries I got. He wanted to mess with your mind. He wanted to break your heart. He wanted to afflict your knees and your hips and all. He wanted to do that, but I did not allow it. See, you're shouting about what he allowed. You ought to be shouting the stuff that he didn't let happen. Oh, Lord have mercy. You ought to be shouting about what he didn't let happen. He let you go through it. Yes, it was embarrassing. Yes, your name is scandalized, all that stuff. But on the other side, in the next scene, Lord, your shout is, I went through it and God spared my life. I lost some stuff, but God spared my life. Because watch this, behind the scenes, he's regulating what is allowed. That is one of the best things that you can hear from the Word of God, that God is regulating behind the scene what is allowed. Okay, you want to do that? Go ahead. That ain't gonna break him. It might stun him, but it ain't gonna break him. He might pout for a day or two, but it ain't gonna break him because you've developed power from your previous testimony. Do you know what I lost in chapter 1? And you think I'm gonna cry because of this? And so this is why focus is so important. You're focusing on what you lost, and God said you ought to be shouting about what I let you keep. I let you keep your life. So what if you lost that? I can get you another one of those, All right. And so that's what we're going to talk about next week. Next week, the question I've always had is the wife said, curse God and die. Curse God and die. That's what he's hearing on one side of his ear. His wife is saying, curse God and die. You still holding on to that integrity stuff. You still got faith. And Job never left. He kept it there because when God gets ready to produce more children, he going to need her. So the stuff that God left that's getting on your nerves, you're going to need it down the road for production. And this is why God allows some stuff to stay and destroy some other stuff. And we're going to get into that a little bit more next week. So the first principle is behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, God is regulating what is allowed. All right? Behind the scenes, God is regulating what's allowed. So here's the second one. Behind the scenes, God is preparing you for what is next. Behind the scenes, he's regulating what's allowed. But also behind the scenes, God is preparing you for what's next. Look at Luke 22 again. Simon, Satan has asked to sift you as wheat. But I've prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. Satan's goal, here it is. I want to sift him as wheat. So Satan's goal was destruction. All right, Satan's goal was destruction. I want to destroy him. Jesus' goal was development. All right, one came to destroy. God allowed it so that he can develop him. All right, two people got knives. One is a burglar and one is a surgeon. All right, so God will allow both of them to have knives, but the intent on God is different than the intent of haters and enemies. All right. Their goal is to destroy you. Their goal is to slander you. Jesus says, I'm using that to develop your character and to get them out of your life. So God says, I'm going to allow some things to happen, not because I'm trying to destroy you, but because I'm developing you in the process and I'm preparing you for what's next. All right. So here's the shout for somebody tonight. Sometimes the season that feels like it's breaking you is actually preparing you. I tell people this all the time. People look at the Mount Olive Pastor Ellison and they see, but the only way you got a Mount Olive Pastor Ellison is because of the Avenue and the Lake Providence experience. All right. So those seasons that sometimes felt like was breaking me was actually preparing me. All right. So before Peter entered the storm, Jesus had already covered him in prayer. Listen to what he says. He's asked for you. But here's what I did. I didn't tell him no. I just started praying. Oh, Lord have mercy. I didn't tell him no. I just started praying. And here's what I prayed, that your faith don't fail. Well, God, seems to me like you would have prayed that I didn't fall. No. Because I just need your faith to keep standing whether you fall or not. So before Peter even entered the storm, he was already covered in prayer. See, that's why you ought to shout that you're going somewhere and God already has you covered in prayer. But you're pouting because didn't nobody call you and pray with you. And God says, why are you worried about them? Why are you focused on them? I've already prayed for you. So before you even enter the storm, God already has you covered in prayer. Watch this. Before Peter fell publicly, Jesus had already prepared restoration privately. How do you know that, Pastor? Listen to what he says. I pray for you, Simon, that your faith don't fail. And when you have come back, here's your assignment. Strengthen your brothers. Notice this. He hadn't even denied him yet. He hadn't even failed publicly yet. And Jesus has already prepared restoration privately. Oh, Lord have mercy. See, this is why I get excited about the Bible, because people will focus on your failure. And I'm shouting because God has already prepared how I'm going to come back. He already knew I was going to fall. He already knew the areas I was weak. So he's already prepared restoration before I even fail. All right. So before Peter failed, before he entered the storm, here's the next one. Before Peter became the leader of Acts chapter 2, God was developing him in Luke chapter 22. So most of you want to be the leader in Acts chapter 2, and God says, no, you got to go through Luke 22 first. You're trying to go around Luke 22. I need for you to go through this storm. And nope, you cannot claim it away. You cannot speak it away. You got to go through this so that you can stand in Acts chapter 2. All right. So watch this. Watch this. Pastor, what do you mean by Acts chapter 20, Acts chapter 2? What happened in Acts chapter 2? Let's look at it. Then Peter continued preaching for a long time, strongly urging all his listeners, save yourself from this crooked generation. Those who believed what Peter said were baptized and added to the church that day, about 3,000 in all. The same one who denied him, the same one who cut a person's ear, the same one who failed privately, God was preparing him to preach so 3,000 can be impacted. See, you're pouting about what's happening right now. God already worked on your Acts chapter 2 scene. The orchestrator has already set up Acts chapter 2, and you're losing your mind in Luke 22. Baby, quit worried about what they're saying in Luke 22. The chapter's going to change in a few hours. All right. So you got to understand that behind the scenes, God is working on my next. All right. So what you're dealing with now, hear me well tonight, church. What you're dealing with now is God's preparation for what comes next. And here's the thing. That's why the people that's in the play don't let you behind the scene. Because most of you, if God was to tell you, here's what we're going to do. You're going to lose your job. You're going to be lied on. Your name's going to be scandalized. You're going to lose a loved one. You're going to do this. You're going to be in a car accident next month. Next month, you're going to have surgery. If he told you all that, whew, Lord have mercy. If he told you all that, you're like, you know what? You can keep that preaching and all that 3,000 coming. I ain't finna go. That's why he's got to work behind the scene, because if he told you everything he's going to bring you through, you wouldn't make it to where you're going. Whew, Lord have mercy. So he says, let me work on this behind the scenes, because if I tell you what you're going to go through, it'll scare you. But if I let you go through it by faith, if I let you go through it after you've been covered in prayer, I can get you through it. Oh, Lord have mercy. So what's going on behind the scenes, Pastor? Number one, God is regulating what's allowed. Number two, God is preparing you for what's next. But here's the second thing on part two. Here's the second thing. Before we leave this, I want to drive this home. God is preparing you for what's next. Listen to what Peter says. Listen to what Peter says. Peter said, Lord, I'm ready to go to prison with you. And I'm even ready to die with you. But Jesus says, Peter, let me tell you something. Before the rooster crows tomorrow morning, you will deny 3 times that you even know me. Watch this. Peter's arrogant. Peter's confident about he's going to follow Jesus. Them other folk might fail, but I won't fail. I won't fail. I'm with you. I'm your ride or die. And watch this. Maybe that's why Satan chose him. Because he kept seeing his mistakes. That's why Satan said, let me get him. I can get him. And so that's why he's keeping records of those little private conversations you have, because he sees your weakness. All right. He sees your weakness. And Peter's very confident. So watch this. So God says, I didn't allow Job to fail, but I let you fail because your failure was necessary before you got to Acts chapter 2. All right. So God often develops us in private before he elevates us in public. What do I mean by that? Let's look at Matthew chapter 14. We talked about this when we talked about focus. Peter said, let me come to you. If it's you, let me come to you. Let me walk on the water. Yes, come, Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and he walked on the water toward Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, Lord, he shouted. Now, think about this for a minute. How many people saw him sink in the water? The people that was in the boat and Jesus. That's it. Private failure. He's sinking in water. Private failure. Nobody saw it. But when he preached in Acts chapter 2, over 3,000 was there. So you ought to shout that even though you're making mistakes, you hadn't made it to the stage yet. Even though maybe that's why he hadn't let you get to where you desire to go, because you still got some more mistakes to make. And watch this. The mistakes you made didn't make it to the news. It's not like you hadn't done some stuff. God got you covered behind the scenes, he's still developing you in private, and only your friends know how crazy you are. Only your friends know you got another side of you. And that's what I love about God. See, most of us are trying to get to the stage, and God says, no, I need to let you make some more mistakes behind the scenes. All right. I'm still working on you so you can only be embarrassed with your 11 brothers. All right. So watch this one. Matthew chapter 16. From then on, Jesus began to tell his disciples. He's telling his disciples, he's talking to 12 people plainly that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem and that he would suffer many terrible things at the hands of elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of the religious law. He would be killed, but on the third day, he would be raised from the dead. Peter took him aside, just him and Jesus, and began to reprimand him for saying such things. Don't say that. Don't claim that, Jesus. Heaven forbid, Lord. This will never happen to you. Jesus turned to Peter and said, get away from me, Satan. You are a dangerous trap to me. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God. That is so awesome to me. How many people saw him fail? How many people saw Jesus call him Satan? Just those two. He took him aside. So it's just those two. He failed, and Jesus called him Satan. Watch this. And he did it in private. Once again, he developing you in private before you get to Acts chapter 2. Last one, Matthew 26 and 40. Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. Could you men not keep watch with me for 1 hour? He asked Peter. How many people saw Peter fall asleep? Just three. So your shout tonight, oh Lord have mercy. Your shout tonight is that Pastor everybody in Shreveport talking about me. Pastor everybody in Allendale talking about me. Pastor everybody in Cedar Grove talking about me. Pastor everybody in Greenwood talking about me. I could let you be a national headline, but I'm still working on you in private before I elevate you to prominence. Oh, Lord have mercy. So behind the scenes, God is preparing you for what's next. All right. So you're pouting now because you don't understand what he's doing. And I'm telling you tonight, behind the scenes, God is preparing you for what's next. Last one. Behind the scenes, God is fighting battles you can't see. Watch what he says. Then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel, since the first day you set your mind to gain understanding and humble yourself before God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come. God, look at this. Man, I'm praying. Daniel had been praying. Daniel had been fasting for 21 days. And nothing happened. No answer, no breakthrough, no visible movement. Here's the question. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been there where you praying and you not seeing nothing? I mean, there is nothing happening. You praying, you fasting, you crying, and you heard that deacon at the church say, right now, Lord. And you heard that songster say, prayer will fix it every time. You heard all that on Sunday. But you ain't seeing nothing. Nothing's happening. No answer, no breakthrough, no visible movement. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been there where you're praying for God to deliver? You're praying for God to cover. You're praying for God to give you your breakthrough, and nothing's happening. And so now you're frustrated because you don't see nothing. So here's a shout. You got to come to this conclusion after tonight that a spiritual battle was taking place behind the scenes. God was taking care of your next, because the Persian prince said, if I allow him to get this information, it's going to change his mind. And he's going to tell some people about the goodness of God. I got to stop him. So God says, let me take care of this now, because once the 21 days is over and I give you this information, there's no stopping you then. And so you're frustrated because he hasn't come through in 21 days. And God says, I'm beyond the 21 days. I'll give you enough strength to make it through the 21 days. I'm working on your next 21 years. And somebody can testify, for the 21 days of frustration, God will give you 21 years of favor. And you're losing confidence because of what you're seeing in these days. And he's working on confidence that he can give you favor for years. And so behind the scenes, God is fighting battles that you can't see. There's some enemies that's trying to destroy you, and God is saying, let me deal with that in these 21 days, because what I'm getting ready to give you is not even for right now, it's for after a while. Lord have mercy. So here's a shout. Here's a shout. Here's a shout. We're getting ready to wrap it up. Lord have mercy. We're getting ready to wrap it up. Many believers, and I'm in that many believers abandon prayer because they assume delay means denial. Well, I'm just going to quit praying because maybe this one not for me. This one not for me. So you just abandon prayer because you assume that delay means denial. If he hadn't come through in 21 days, he hadn't come through in 3 weeks because somebody told me that after 21 days, it's a lifestyle change. After 21 days, stuff started happening. So after 21 days, you declared and decree it's going to happen. No. God says, I want to see how long you'll keep praying without ceasing. Watch this. But Daniel teaches us tonight that delay often means God is handling matters we cannot see. As Brother Will says, the orchestrator is getting everything in place. He's got a script, and the script says, I'm preparing a table before him in the presence of his enemies. The script says, I'm anointing his head with oil and his cup's running over. The script says, surely goodness and mercy is going to follow him all the days of his life. That's what the script says. But today I'm walking through the valley. Oh, Lord have mercy. And many of you, you're getting frustrated in the valley. You're getting frustrated because you're beside still waters and nothing's happening. And God says, I'm just trying to get you to the table. Don't get weary in well doing. Just keep following me, the shepherd, because I can get you through 21 days because I got favor for 21 years. Delay does not mean denial. All right. So you got to understand that behind the scenes, God is fighting battles you can't see. Here it is. Some battles are not physical. Some obstacles are not natural. Some delays are connected to spiritual realities beyond your understanding. This is what I love about God. There's some stuff, if God would have allowed it to happen 20 years ago, it would have broke me. But God says, I'm working on that back then so that when you get to it, you're stronger now. You're wiser now. Let's be honest. If some stuff that you're going through now in your 50s, 60s, and 70s would have happened to you in your 30s, you would have quit going to church. If they'd have said what they said about you now, back then, you'd have been fighting. But God says, let me work on that so by the time you get to it, you're stronger now. If they would have done that to you back then, you would have been Peter cutting people. But God says, I fought that battle already. So when you got to it, the enemy was already defeated. So behind the scenes, God is fighting battles you can't see. So what should I be doing, Pastor? What should I be doing? That's why you got to learn how to pray without ceasing. You got to learn how to pray without ceasing. All right? Just continue to pray. He hadn't come through yet, but I'm going to still keep praying. Because at some point, he's going to show up. And watch what he says when he show up. I could have been here. I heard you the first time. Come on, you got kids. You got kids. Mama. Can you? Hey, I heard you the first time. I'm doing something now. We understand that part. God says, I heard you the first time. I will take care of it. But right now, I'm fighting this battle. So that when you get to it, you don't lose no sleep then. So what have we talked about tonight? Behind the scenes. I'm waiting for the show to start. The show hadn't even started yet, but it's getting dark. And anybody that done been there, you already know that when they turn the lights off, when it get real dark, whew, Lord have mercy, they through working now. They through preparing now. They're ready now. So some of you, you're going through one of the darkest seasons of your life. And I just stopped to tell you tonight that behind the scene, God's regulating what is allowed. You ought to shout tonight that even though something happened to you, it wasn't everything that happened to you. All right. So he allowed some things to happen, but he didn't allow everything to fall apart. And what he left you with is going to be what you need for your next season. He took the money, he took the car, he took the house, he took this, and he left you with peace of mind. God says, I'm going to just leave you with people. He got the car. He got all this stuff. He left you with peace of mind. So when you got to your next season, you got creativity because you still got your mind. Whew, Lord have mercy. And you losing sleep because of a house, because of a car, because of this, because of that. And God says, I'm regulating what's allowed because I'm going to let stay what you're going to need in your next season. Lord have mercy. So behind the scenes, God's regulating what's allowed. Behind the scenes, God is preparing you for what's next. I tell people all the time, God allowed a lot of stuff to go along at Mount Olive because he knew he was preparing somebody for 12, 13 years before I even got there. All right. So behind the scenes, people are wondering, why did he leave? Why did he do? Why did he do this? Why did this happen? Why this happen? Why does it? And God says, just hold on. I'm preparing somebody that's going to be your next pastor. I'm preparing somebody for what you need next season. And so you got to trust God. You got to trust that the orchestrator got the script. He already knows what he's got for me next, but I ain't ready for it now. So behind the scenes, God is fighting battles you can't see. That ought to be the shout for somebody tonight. That if this would have happened to me back then, I couldn't have handled it. But God already took care of it before I even got there.